Sri Lanka. Welcome to another edition of Decibel Podcast. And today I have a very cool international guest, Babar Sheukh from Pakistan's metal scene. Now, just so you know, Babar Sheukh is mainly known as the brainchild of DUSK, which is a doom metal band from Karachi since '95, where it's been dubbed as Pakistan's heaviest export. But Babar today is not here to talk about DUSK, but Zor Burq and the impending performance at Dark Atomic Signals in Sri Lanka. Now, the sound that is described that transcends conventional boundaries, pushing limits of auditory perception and challenging preconceived notions of musical expression. Welcome to the podcast, Babar.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Hello and salam alaikum and namaskar. Hello, a greeting to everyone who's listening. I'm so happy to be part of this. I think the last time I did a Sri Lankan interview was almost maybe over 10 years ago, sometime like that. It's been a while, so for sure. Thank you so much for welcoming me, man. Yeah.
Man, I'm so glad to be having you on the podcast and just can't wait to discover more about you, Zor Burq, etc. So talk us through about the early days in the Pakistan extreme metal scene and the birth of DUSK before moving on to Zor Burq.
Yeah, that's going to be a far shot, but I'm going to try. Yeah. So
Okay.
I started out DUSK, which I think it's safe to say it's the first Pakistani extreme metal band. Back in the day, we later were characterized or known for our very heavy sort of doom, death, traditional doom meets death metal, mid-tempo death metal sound. And at some point, we also became really proggy and weird. But before that, I think what really sowed the seeds of DUSK was my love for international metal. This was a very cool time in the late 80s, early 90s. When I got into metal was early 90s. I was very much influenced. Early 90s was a super time for anyone being a metalhead, I think. I was into the Florida scene, which was thriving at that time, the Florida death metal scene with bands like Death and Morbid Angel. Now they're household names, I think, but back in the day, it was super underground. And of course, some bands from England and Sweden, Norway. Norway, of course, the black metal scene was something that we were very intrigued with at that time. And that was early 90s, and it was a very, very beautiful time. Of course, for me, however, heavy music, I would be into my reference point or sort of centrifugal point would always be Black Sabbath, because that's the band I grew up with and I still listen to this day. Tony Iommi's songwriting is something sacred to me, I think, in terms of music and musicality. So I think anybody listening to DUSK would agree with me when they hear that, because there's a lot that you can hear in DUSK, which comes from there. And I started out the band without a direction. I just wanted to play really heavy music, yeah. And of course, a part of being metal in the subculture is also rebellion, right? So in the late 80s, early 90s, there was bands that were coming out in Pakistan, which were proto hard rock, early heavy metal, not even heavy metal, but like heavier sounding bands. But nobody would do like growling vocals and all this kind of stuff, which I wanted to do, almost also being part of having that image of being a metalhead, being really introverted and sort of like doing your own thing, not really caring. Biggest challenge for me over the years has been finding musicians, like-minded musicians. I've featured some of Pakistan's top musicians in the ranks of DUSK throughout the years, but it's been a trouble sort of keeping the lineup sort of the same. And also, I think, over the years, we've been signed to various labels internationally. We have gotten much more popularity in places like Sri Lanka or Bangladesh or India, or Nepal, for that matter, much more than we are known back in Pakistan, where I am right now. So this is a thing. It's kind of thing. People know what DUSK is, and they know, but I think I think there is a problem there with and then over the late 90s when metal started becoming redundant and stuff, it was a very strange time for other genres to come in, which were, I guess, more oriented by other sort of stuff. So there was a lot of ups and downs, but Dusk has been sort of keeping afloat over the years. I'm not sure if I would like to say that it's super active still. We just came up with a split album with one of Asia's biggest bands called Anatomia, or a Japanese doom death band. And we just made a split CD with them. We released by a Mexican record label last month. No, this month. No, last month, October. And yeah, things are looking okay. We released our last full length a couple of years back. And but I think I've had my share with Dusk and touring. I've also toured with various other international acts. Over the years, I've been really, really close with other Asian scenes. Um, uh, some parts of the Indian scene, especially Bangalore, various other big bands than Dusk. Like, for example, I played in a band called Impiety, which is very well known throughout Asia and internationally. I was on the lineup for one album. So I mean, I would say I've done my share of. This is more than I could ask for, sitting in a very removed place from all metal central activities. I'm very far away in Pakistan, but I think I've been blessed by doing a lot of stuff which I could, for sure. Sorry for the long.
No, no, that's fine. I mean, history does take a while to be explained and all that, so it's completely fine. And for people getting to know your band for the first time on a very personal level like this, it would mean a lot to them. So talk to us about Zor Burq and when this came into the picture, as there is not a lot of information about the inceptions of this project online. And what does Zor Burq mean?
Hmm. So, Zor Burq, Zor Burq.
Oh, Zor
I know
Burq, okay.
Zor Burq, Burq, it's really tricky because it's in Urdu. The word is Urdu. Zor means hard,
Yeah.
uh, pressure, and Burq is kind of electric. Another terminology in Urdu for electricity or electric, in very proper Urdu. Urdu is a beautiful language. It's it's a compendium. It's an amalgamation of six various, primarily six, five or six languages of the world, and it's got interesting terminologies. Anyway, that's another thing we can talk about later. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot has changed with me over the years. Musically, I would not go too deep, but Zor Burq is a project that I've been wanting to do for. So over the years, I've had a lot of side projects. I've worked in the black metal genre. I've worked in ambient music. I've done a lot of ambient music projects. And a lot of times, I think people have been really thrown away with Dusk releases because we'll have a release which will sound completely different from the last one. And then we'd be like coming back to playing our rootsy sort of death doom music. So I think it was a lack of side projects. And since I do a lot of stuff on my own, alone, it kind of becomes a challenge for me. But through the early 2020s, I was feeling the need to sort of stall Dusk, you know, and venture off into something completely different. And I think that was a very severe need when you kind of know it in your heart. And I've been experimenting with sound samples, atmospheric music, a lot of heavy electronic sounds in Dusk and other projects as well, in terms of intros and outros, like, before like a whole metal sort of like song, so-called song starts, you have this intro with like some electronic weird mechanical huge machine industrial sounds. So I've been doing that shit for a couple of number of years, almost a decade now. And I think it was just a matter of time that my heart would say, I want to venture off into a project like that. So enter Zor Burq, which is Zor Burq is you could say hard electric, and that's exactly what it is. It's kind of very heavy electronic frequencies that I try to work with on stage, along with sampling some Eastern tones from my part of the world. And it's a mix of what my influences have been on the side. I've been a metalhead through and through, but I've also been really influenced by a lot of other genres. Like, I've really been into the 80s new wave. I still love bands like The Cure. I still love bands like Depeche Mode. German band called Einstürzende Neubauten made a huge impact on me in the late 80s, early 90s. They were one of the first industrial bands. I never got into other industrial bands, but I was primarily into this German band, another band called Skinny Puppy, and some Ministry. All of these bands are from various other genres, which I think are as heavy and hard as, or even heavier and harder than metal. But they play with other sort of stuff, things. So Zor Burq is just something that I just wanted to do, and I wanted it to be unknown. I don't want to make it famous. I don't want to make it big. That's how it started. I just put it, I never even wrote that this is me behind the project. A year and a half ago, when I put out my first demo, it was nameless, man. I just said Zor Burq, band from Pakistan, and heavy electronics, noise, industrial, whatever genre you want to call it. And like other styles of music that I do, it's hard to pin what category I'm in, and I like that a little bit. So, but Zor Burq was like, I just sort of, sometimes I would just paste a link of Bandcamp on my other socials and stuff like that, and just be nameless about it. I think only till early this year, a friend of mine who plays in a crust grind band in Singapore asked me to come and fill in for bass on them for their first May gig. They wanted to do a Labor Day gig in Singapore. That's the band Topsy Turvy. Actually, I was wearing a T-shirt from them. So Topsy Turvy, I went and played bass. I filled in for them on bass, and before I went, they said, "Hey, why don't you bring some of your shit and gear, and we could do a Zor Burq, like a 20-minute piece before we started the show." And I was like, okay, that sounds interesting. And I think that was the proper sort of introduction, and people kind of drew parallels with my face and the band and whatever the project you want to call. And then recently, I've just completed another tour with Jaw Surgery as well, one of the other artists that is going to be playing in this show in December. Yeah. So I don't know if I was able to explain, but yeah, that's something about Zor Burq. Yeah.
No, you explained it well, my dude. And talk about some of the recording processes and equipment you've used to record your latest releases, such as Azad Zinda and Saraswati's Forgotten Horns. Also, will these releases be available for purchase in Sri Lanka?
So basically, Azad Zinda is no, Azad Zinda is actually the name of the song, but the actual release is something which is just released by a Singaporean record label. And this is released on limited edition cassettes. So if people would still like to buy tapes, I think I will have maybe 5 or 6 tapes with me to sell if anybody is interested at the show. But to be very honest, the whole noise genre is not really about selling as much merch. I think that's one of the things that have really peeved me off about metal as well in the last 10 years or so. It was so capitalistic and it was so business, like, you had to sell that much merch to make it work on a tour. And I mean, it's also the harsh reality of shit, but this kind of, how kind of money and merchandise kind of politicizes the whole feeling of music. That kind of, it
Mhm.
wasn't working for me. That couldn't work for me. So, so something I don't see a lot in other genres like noise and industrial. It's very easy. It's very easygoing. So we just released maybe like a very limited batch of tapes, um, um, by a record label called Mata Rambang, which is a Singaporean record label, which is run by a very talented friend of mine who plays noise and who plays in several other styles of music, including power violence and metal. Um, the recording process you asked me, Yasmin, it starts with sampling for me and just frequencies and things. One of the songs that you hear on Bandcamp from this last release, which is called Azad Zinda, it's got a beat, and this beat comes from a ritualistic Sufi performance on the streets of Karachi. And I went with a device and I sampled it, and I come back and sort of put together a whole barrage of sound from that. My primary machines to work with are like old synthesizers from the 80s and the 90s, which are modeled on the 80s and the 90s. I take my vocals through a lot of effects, and it's heavy electronics, man. It's electronic music, but in a very heavy way. And I've just been going to various studios, friends of mine who have small little recording. I have a small little recording place in this room where I'm sitting right now. So I just try to put it together without, that's also something so much about metal that I kind of was missing about other genres, because metal has to be really, you have to go to a really good studio, your amp has to be plugged in and mic'd and blah and blah. I mean, I love that pristine finesse about metal as well, but working on the other side is so much more raw and organic. The first demo that Zor Burq did was is a two track thing called Saraswati's Broken Horns. A lot of people are very curious about the title. Um, and if you listen to it, it starts with like a very heavy tenor saxophone. I've sampled it. It was actually from a friend of mine from back in the day, who would play tenor saxophone with me in one of my other crazy sort of noise, jazz, weird ambient sort of band. And he always used to say that, Saraswati is the goddess of the arts, and she's really angry with people in Karachi because, uh, you know, Saraswati is not happy. He always used to say, Saraswati is not happy with us. She will break all our instruments because she is not happy, because we don't value art. We don't value, our state doesn't value art. We don't value art as people. I think part of that frustration is could be true, but a lot of it I think is also overhype. Um, but I think Pakistan is one of the best places to make art. In another way, you got to be. It allows you to thrive. It allows you to do your stuff really, because when you're not in an environment which is completely conducive to art and culture, I think you thrive a little bit more. When there is certain regulations and limitations on what you can do. For example, I've been doing dusk for so many years, just sitting out of my various bedrooms at various points in my life. I've just been selling demos, making bookings for shows, everything, it didn't stop me. So this friend of mine always used to say, Saraswati will break all our instruments. She's angry with us, the goddess and he's a very interesting, enigmatic person who played in one of my bands called Aufgang. We might be releasing that a recording by that band after 23 years of actually recording it. So so I just thought I wanted to feature some of his tenor saxophone, and his tenor saxophone actually reminds me of like a old steamboat ship horn, It's kind of really haunting and deep. And I just thought it'd be cool to call it Saraswati's Broken Horns. The cover is like a opening lotus flower, kind of like a flower, which is pink in color. Also something that I could never do in metal. Have a pink cover, not really give a shit about how crazy your logo looks and how many points it has, and not really being limited to black and red only, because that is true metal. So I kind of broke not only the boundaries of music, but I think a lot of other things where I stopped really giving a shit about what people really think. And I think that was what Zor Burq was. I wanted to be nameless and not really give a shit about what people thought of the music. You like it? Great. Thank you so much. You don't like it? Also, thank you. You may leave now. So it's kind of like I wanted to do that because with Dusk also, I think at some point there was some kind of impending pressure. Oh, you guys are known as a Doom band. You should play Doom. Oh, no, you guys are, we wanted to play sort of like South American black thrash metal at one point, and everybody's like, you guys sound weird because you were a Doom band and now you're playing this style. And, I was like, okay. So it's interesting. It's interesting. I feel, I felt metal. It's weird to say that I felt metal was limiting me in a way, even though it's supposed to be really boundless and limitless. But I thought metal limited me in a lot of ways, for sure. You know, um, I listen to music from all over the world, man. I mean, I was playing the last EP by someone called Azia, who's I don't know if you call it Azia or Azaya. I don't know. She's a British star, British pop artist. I listen to a lot of pop music, a lot of reggae from back in the day. I love dub music. Some of my favorite bands are bands that really define the boundaries, but they influence a lot of metal bands, like a band called Killing Joke. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they've been my go-to band for a number of years now. Killing Joke are a band from England that have recorded an album sitting in the Pyramid of Giza in Egypt.
Ooh.
Actually, they recorded inside that album, really enigmatic, really weird, really. I mean, I think over the years, Yasmin, I started getting turned on more and more by shit that was boundless and not really caring about genre limitations.
Naturally. So, Babar, you have played session guitars for Impiety, the Singaporean band, on albums like For Me Donis, Next Cultist, and have toured with them as well. Tell us about how this connection materialized and what were the recording sessions like?
Oh man, this Impiety is one of the biggest and most well-known extreme metal acts of I would say, safe to say, from Asia. Um, they've really hardworking bunch of people fronted by their very very charismatic, well-known frontman who is the backbone of the band. And he and me have been. I wasn't friends with him from the early 90s. I kind of got to know him in the late 90s a little bit, and then we kind of got in touch off and on. He was running, amongst other things, amongst doing a fabulous job at Impiety and taking Impiety to play festivals and stuff all over the world. I mean, really, the kind of exposure that Impiety has had, I think Asian bands can only dream of. People like me can only kind of dream of in the metal setting. But he had a record store in Singapore in the mid 2000s. Starting from early to mid 2000s, he had a record store which also had a jamming studio. It was a really cool place, nice shop. And this was a time I used to. So, like I mentioned to you earlier, I've been very much in touch with the whole scene in Singapore. I've also been traveling there a lot because part of my family lives there, and etc. etc. So I would go and we would hang out at the store a lot. And this was the time when he was taking a break from Enpiety for a few couple of years, and then wanted to put a new lineup together. And that's when he offered me to be a part of the new lineup. I did not play guitars; I played bass. Yeah, I've been always primarily I've been a bass player. With Dusk, I've been a guitar player and a bass player, but primarily a bass player or bassist, if you might. And he asked me if I wanted to be on the lineup, and I said that'd be great. And I took the job, and um, but it wasn't easy for me to commit to touring, to be honest with you, because when the touring schedule came in, I was like, whoa, because it was kind of also very expensive for me to travel from Pakistan to Singapore, which is uh, like far away. It's not easy. Six hours plus by air to go to Singapore from here, from Karachi, if you look at it on the map. So it wasn't easy for me to fly to Singapore, stay there, jam with the band, and then sort of finance ourselves to Europe. And like so I mean it wasn't easy, and then there was other challenges with my career, with my job. I couldn't afford to be away for such a long time. It would be
Hmm.
questionable. It would be a questionable choice for me in the long term to do that. I mean, I think I've done a lot of times where I've made music my preference over other stuff. But I mean, these are things as an adult or a young adult you got to start doing, take responsibilities for things. So unfortunately, the tour never materialized for me. They did go on tour, and that tour was fabulous for them. We're still good friends to the date. Myself and the frontman from Empire, we're good friends. We have a good laugh and a good chat whenever we hang. So I'm happy for that. Yeah.
Are you aware that Dust's 2002 compilation CD Heart of Darkness was found in a couple of stores across Sri Lanka? So there are two stores like Pyramid Nugagata and Pro Media and Town Hall. And this was around 2004, 2005. Now, here's my question also to you. Were these bootlegs or the real deal? Because the label on the CD said Capitol Records. Tell us what you know about this.
Oh man, I mean, honestly speaking, there was, Pakistan had a huge piracy industry, huge.
Oh.
And this is the late 2000, late 90s, early 2000s when CDs and DVDs were the shit. And there was the person who was doing a lot of this piracy, was really interested in releasing metal and hard rock for some strange reason. And he said, oh, bring me extreme metal bands and I'll release them. And it's like, whoa, okay. But just for, and they would put the Capitol Records logo there somehow. That was happening. They had a whole design house. They had a whole design house that was happening in some basement somewhere in the heart. There was a place in Karachi, not far from where I live, which was the heart of this bootlegging, right? Um, and there was not just those guys. There was several other organizations doing this. I think there was a huge crackdown by the FBI or people from the West, or rather in America, who were cracking down on piracy all over the world. This is before a lot of these piracy laws were introduced, but after that. So I mean, this guy was put out of business for sure. I think he also was picked up by the security, whatever. I mean, for violation of laws. But before that, many years before that, there was this guy who this guy who was the owner, was running this operation of pirating everything. And I think they would not have caught him if he was just selling in Pakistan, but he was selling all over Asia. I think I've heard this from people in Nepal. I've heard this from people in Bangladesh. I think he was selling, it was huge. And people were like, whoa, this is the new, I mean, commercial bands like Disturbed or like Linkin Park or whatever. I mean, the album would be released internationally and it would be out for like, if you had to pay like what, in those days you had to pay maybe like 1,000 rupees for an original CD. And here you had the same quality, everything, great printing, booklet, everything completely bootlegged for like 100 rupees. Yeah. So it was a huge
Wow.
difference there. So what happened was I get a call from this guy saying, hey, you want to release a Dusk album with this guy, and his distribution network is all over Asia. And I was like, cool, because the first Dusk album that was released back in the day was released by a label from Europe in Portugal. And I knew that even though Dusk was a cult kind of a underground name, but a lot of people in Asia wanted that album and they couldn't get their hands on it. So I was like, it'd be cool to repackage the whole first album, put in some new demos, put in some unreleased stuff from back in the day, and repackage everything with like this really. I told this guy, I was like, if you want to release me, you gotta give us like this really cool, super like 20-page booklet, and booklets were the thing in back in the day, you know. You used to open a booklet and it was all the art. And he said, no problem, I'll give you like 2 sides, 10-page each side. And I don't know, it was something humongous. And that was called Hearts of Darkness. And I've been told not only people from Sri Lanka, but people from Bangladesh. I remember hanging out with Sunil, who is now Dr. Sunil, who is the leader for this band called Urga Karma, which is Nepal's leading extreme metal band from back in the day. I think they were the first ones to start playing this kind of metal in Nepal. And I remember meeting him in Nepal while doing a backpacking trip, late 90s, early 2000s, and mid 2000s actually. And he's like, dude, there's a Dusk album on sale over here. And so the distribution network was definitely all over Asia or South Asia, or this side of Asia, if you might want to say that.
So what were some of the more major challenges you have faced in a local context when it came to performing with Zor Burq in your country?
Man, I've had the same challenges for 25 years now. Nobody understands the music. Nobody understands the music. Nobody wants to be a part of there's not a gig where people can get enough audiences in. That's why Pakistan DUSK could never perform. We also could never find a drummer, unfortunately, who could nail it. And all the guys who could nail it were too much into jazz and prog and all of these weird genres that I don't get along with. I've never been into jazz, by the way. I've always been a bluesy guy. I've loved blues. I've loved the organicness and the reality of the blues more than the pretentiousness of jazz. Yeah, with Zor Burq also, I mean, it's heavy on the ears, right? It's all these frequencies that I'm dabbling with, and I'm kind of processing and reprocessing and sampling at the same time. And it's kind of overwhelming to hear. So the first performance that we've done recently was at an art show. Somehow there's this really cool art curator locally who's a lot of these young people are now curating art shows and things, and I love that. I love their energy, and I love the fact that they have this really cool DIY-ness to them, And she was like, "Hey, you should come and perform." At one of the shows. And even though it was an art gallery and people were performing, doing installation art and performance art and stuff, and I was in a corner going and stuff, but it was interesting. Not really my ideal way of performing, but I think Zor Burq will find a space within these sort of more DIY spaces and the more sort of like art space scene, rather than underground electronica, whatever. I think Zor Burq has a space there, and not just with local scene. I think more internationally, if I wanted to push it more sort of in the installation art, because I've also been an installation artist for a number of years now. So what I do for a living is I'm a filmmaker. I've been a filmmaker for now about 25, 30 years of my life. That's another chapter, but I don't make, I make more sort of commercial films to make a living. But what I do as an antidote to that is I always engage myself with a lot of this video installation art. stuff like that. I've been heavily involved with that. So I do a lot of installation work, and part of the Zor Burq also comes from me designing sound for those weird installation videos, that are projected on, like, the very immersive projections and etc. etc. So I've been doing sound with sampling and shit for those kind of art pieces of mine, because I somehow like to be still afloat in the art scene a little bit, amongst other things. So yeah, I mean, I think Zorbart's going to find its way in the art scene, or like art spaces and DIY spaces that are cropping up all over I mean, I was in KL performing a show last mid of last month, and you could really tell that the DIY culture is really thriving there, man. It was really good. It's good to see that. You have a
Very
nice
cool.
coffee shop on the side, and like a lot of DIY stuff is happening on its own in like art spaces that are on top of industrial bunkers or complexes or whatever. It's
Wow.
nice. It's
That
good to
is
see
so
that.
insightful because you don't get to hear things like this that's happening in Pakistan. So thank you for sharing that insightful thing.
Cool, man. No
I
problem.
really hope
Yeah.
we get to hear more about like Pakistan and Karachi's like art spaces and other bands that are currently thriving and things like that because it'd be so cool to just have Sri Lanka know about them and hopefully there will be a good cross exchange of like talent and culture in the future.
No,
Personally, I
for
would love to
sure. I
see
mean,
that.
Karachi has a very thriving hip hop culture. Hip hop, rap, electronic music is thriving. Rock and metal, not so much. Metal, definitely not. Rock, you could say, into some ways. There's a lot of fusion of folk and classical and South Asian, sort of more raga music with rock and stuff, and that fusion was crafted by Pakistan. We started Coke Studio. Pakistan was the country where Coke Studio started. Pakistan thought of like Ruhail Hayat, who was once member of Pakistan's biggest pop band, called Vital Signs. If you've ever heard that song called Dil Dil Pakistan, which is a very famous, almost like a national anthem for us, not our national anthem, but almost like a pop 80s pop national anthem. The person who was playing the synthesizer on that band later on crafted Coke Studio, right? And then Coke Studio became a practice by Coca-Cola International, taking it to several other parts of the world,
Hmm.
like, parts of South America, India, other places like that. So I think a lot of it's unfortunate because music couldn't thrive on its own as an indie entity, but it kind of needed, unfortunately or fortunately, it needed the to take like support from like a soft drink company. But I mean, whatever happened, it really propelled Pakistani scene into a good way, I think. And now for the past, I think I think almost 6, 7, 8 years of my life now, I've been witnessing a very heavy sort of like a revolution, almost like a in the hip hop scene, in the rap, and that's not limited to people who are privileged or who can make music, or it really goes to areas of Karachi that are underprivileged and not financially, you would say, where people would not have enough time or to think about making music, but kids from these neighborhoods are kind of coming out and doing their shit. It's awesome, and they're making waves internationally as well. Yeah.
Yeah, here's to like all of
So
that
not
thriving.
sorry.
I said, so happy, and here's to seeing more of that thriving.
Yeah, I mean, not the best things for me to bring up in a metal sort of like a podcast, but to be honest, that's how it is. Oh.
No, but it's good to know about these things, like I said earlier, because it's very fascinating, and also it's just these are things that are not spoken of, and it's good to know.
Yeah.
Like for someone who wants to maybe come discover Karachi and all, because what we see in Sri Lanka and maybe in different parts of the world is such a different picture. But hearing it from you, a local, just makes it more like authentic, and it just makes us want to come see the scene for what it is. So thank you for that authentic picture of
No problem,
Karachi.
man.
You both, when I say you both, it's you guys and jaw surgery performed in Singapore and Malaysia together. Was this premeditated? And also tell us more about these shows and what were your individual sets like?
The artist behind jaw surgery, Chester, is has become a very, very dear friend of mine now. After our tour, we were on a tour together. It was a mini tour. We performed a night in Singapore, and then we, along with several other artists, we artists from Japan, artists from Indonesia, artists from Malaysia and Singapore. We all traveled by road to Kuala Lumpur, where we performed the next night, the following night and other shows. So these were two back-to-back shows. After which I kind of hung out for a few days, just chilled out, and then I eventually ended up coming back. But the tour was phenomenal. I think it reminded me of good old metal days, where everybody's kind of looking out for each other. Of course, the whole genre is very different. Noise is and harsh noise and industrial electronic sounds. I mean, this is a whole different genre, but it also really gives space for you to kind of engage with another artist on a very different level. And jaw surgery, they're super talented, man. I think Colombo's going to get a great flavor of what he's all about or what that band's all about on the 6th. I would definitely think that very few noise artists perform the way he does. And it's nothing short of being inspired when I see him live. It's awesome. My set is very different. The good thing about noise is noise music or heavy electronics or industrial music is that there's no one set method to do stuff. Some people use noise boxes and various other concussions to kind of make that sound. Other people do other shit. I sort of take some stuff that I've sampled onto my computer and I play that back. And then what I do is I feed off that stuff that's playing through that on a synthesizer that you will hopefully see on the tour with me. And plus my vocals, which are also highly, highly manipulated on stage. In addition to that, in Sri Lanka, what I'm planning to do is do an extended set because the organizers told me I could go up to 40 minutes, but that's going to be too long for a solo performance. So I'm going to work something around 30 minutes plus, which also will have sort of like this very ritual, sort of meditative ritual, therapeutic sound to kick off with. And then I'm going to play some stuff that I do experimentations on a bass guitar since I've been a bass player for most of my life. So that, and with some, you will hear some sort of cultural, traditional Pakistani sampling. And then we will go on to a full electronic, sort of heavy electronics, industrial noise set. So that's all I can tell you at this point. Yeah.
Okay. Talk about the best show you've performed under your respective moniker.
I mean, honestly speaking, not much. I haven't performed much to be saying this is the best show, but you know how shows are. Sometimes it's the vibe. And with noise music, it's interesting. The best thing that not many people will tell you is you can't rehearse noise music. It is all about the space. It is all about the frequency. It is all about how close your monitors are. It's about the kind of feedback you will get on that day. It's how your equipment is behaving, how your mind is working. So it's very spontaneous and on the fly. You can almost have so many. But if you ask me or jaw surgery as an artist to perform, as a noise performer to perform 3 nights in a row, I can tell you all 3 nights our performances are going to be different from every night.
No, I can imagine. That must be like so wild. But yeah, looking
It is
forward.
wild, man. It breaks boundaries. And I'm all about that stuff now in my life. You. I mean, I still love I still love like a heavy distorted guitar with really raging drums and guttural vocals and I love that stuff. I want to like go and into a pit and I want to slam and I want to mosh and I want to headbang. Sure, but there's so much other stuff, and like I check this out. I brought this out to share with you. Like this band changed my life. Yeah, and this is a band called Dead Moon, and these guys are from the U.S. They're from Portland, Oregon, and the guitar player and singer, the late Fred Cole, is he died almost 10 years back. This is his wife Tootie and Andrew Loomis, the drummer, and these guys as a trio, man, they really changed things the way I looked at music. They were into lo-fi sort of rock and roll garage sound, and it broke so many limitations and boundaries for me. I love that when that happens for me, something like that. I love the fact that those guys were just about the music. It has to be about the music. It has to really be about rock and roll. At the end of the day, really doesn't matter if you're playing electronic music, you're rapping. It is rock and roll for me all the way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, no, I totally get what you mean. How did your connection to Robin Command materialize?
So I would have to give credit of that to my record label, the DUSK record label, which is somehow still active with us, called Cyclopean Eye Productions, which is a record label from Bangalore, run by a very long-standing friend and comrade of mine called Sandesh Shenoy. Yay! And Sandesh and me, we've known each other since the early 2000s, man. So coming 25 years nearly, I mean, back in the day, there was MSN Chat and MIRC, and that's where we used to connect on back in the day. And he's like, hey, you're a metalhead from Pakistan. One of the earliest people who I ever met from Asia who was into extreme metal was Sandesh. And Sandesh, as we all know, is one of the most hardworking people out there. Wants to get great music out to people. I haven't seen more honest person than him, to be very honest. Not saying that because he's a friend of mine, but he works his ass off for bringing really extreme sounds and frequencies. And not only has he released only metal, he's also diversified into several other genres like noise, etc., and bands from Sri Lanka who've made members of Genocide Shrines have made albums with him which are not metal, which are great. There's something awesome about that. So for sure, Sandesh connected me with these guys. As I told you, I've been working as a filmmaker now 25 years. I remember, I think 10 years ago, or maybe more than 10 years, I think 12 years ago, I was going to Sri Lanka to shoot because as you know, your country has these beautiful locations. And I was traveling with one of Pakistan's biggest cricket rock stars, and I was shooting a commercial TV ad with him, where he had to be going around different landscapes. And we were all over Sri Lanka. And, that's my life as a filmmaker. And I was directing that. And that's when I got in touch with Sandesh and I was like, dude, do you know some people in Sri Lanka? He's like, do I know people in Sri Lanka? I'm going to hook you up with the guys from... And Genocide Shrines was not as well known as now they are. I mean, they're one of the most sought after names, as you can tell from Asia. And kudos to them, really hardworking guys. I love them. And that was the first time when I was introduced to the guys from Genocide and other folks who were really cool. And I've been in touch with them, man. I was... whenever I'm in Lanka, backpacking or traveling or anything like that. But this is going to be a different experience. So it was a matter of time. They wanted me to be a part of this. And I'm really happy and thankful that I can be a part of it.
And what can the audience expect from you on the 6th of December? And also, will there be any CD releases or merchandise available for Lankan fans on the day?
Lankan fans can get the first copy of our EP. Our latest EP, it is on tape. It is as cult and as special as it can get. No CDs, no vinyl, but tape. This is the second Zor Burq album that has just been released by Matarambang Records. So you can get that. I'm not really huge on merch, but I think Sandesh, my record label, is going to be carrying some stuff from But you never know. I'm here for making some connections in Lanka and probably start some merch selling there for gigs and stuff, etc., etc. I would love to meet and answer as many questions and fans on the day on the 6th. May God be willing. Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah, and your set, my dude, what's that gonna be like?
My set's gonna be a mix of very interesting sounds. It's not it will be very heavy stuff, but I'm not promising if it's going to be metal enough for everyone. It's definitely not a death or black metal set. It is, and this is the first time that the Ravan Command people are also very excited about bringing non-metal acts to the show, like noise bands, like two of the noise bands, like Jaw Surgery and Zor Burq. They're including. I think that's a really supreme, brave step that they're taking to kind of break down boundaries and limits, etc., etc. So I'm looking forward to that, really. Part of my set, 30 minute plus set, is going to be ritual sounds, almost very based, deep rooted in Pakistani culture. I'm going to try and sample some stuff. I'm sampling some stuff with some spoken word, some prose and some poetry that is going to be coming in an interesting theatrical dramatized way, and then we're going to go into a full-on noise set after that. Yeah, so that's what I'm looking forward to.
Cool. And is there any last words?
Last words are thank you so much for the interview and thank you for the love and support, and looking forward to making some crazy frequencies out there. Yeah.
Yeah. Here's all power to you, and see you very soon, man.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Yasmin. Thank
Jai
you.
Weva. Hey, Sri Lanka, this is Yasmin Yusuf from DecibelLK, and I have someone you need to get to know, especially if you are from Sri Lanka's music scene. He is Chester from Jaw Surgery, hailing from the Philippines. Chester is from the Philippines and has been in the harsh noise power electronics scene for some years. He's toured with Jaw Surgery in multiple countries across Asia, including Singapore, Malaysia, Siem Reap, Bali, Shanghai, and even Melbourne. And he also boasts a broad discography of releases such as Castration Rights and an Exoskeleton, all released on international record labels during his career. How are you today, Chester?
Doing great. Happy to be here, and thank you for the invitation.
I'm happy to have you, and I just can't wait for everyone in Sri Lanka to get to know you a lot better.
Yeah, I'm excited to be there. It happens in a few weeks.
I know. Excitement in the air. So, Chester, my first question to you is, how would you describe the genres of power electronics and harsh noise to the untrained ear or someone that is new to the genre?
That's a great question, huh? For someone who is not really into the genre, it would be quite extreme. I'd say it's actually more extreme than some of the extreme metal music out there. Like probably there's somewhat a linkage with like black metal, some grindcore, like that extremity, that force. It's actually not really for everyone. I've been following different kinds of bands from different countries too, so not really for everyone, I'd say.
Okay. You have performed in close to 10 countries during the past few years. Tell us about the challenges you have had face trying to set up these shows across such continents.
Well, my journey started when I did my first tour run in Australia. That actually happened because I have a brother who is based there already. So he helped me a lot with setting it up. Like I have a base, can stay there. And then I contacted different online friends to help me out set up the show. So when I started that specific tour in Australia, what I did was I contacted friends from Melbourne since they have quite a tight scene in Melbourne for experimental and noise. So some artists I worked with were Ben Smith from Janus Tapes, Rod Cooper. I also worked with different guys from Make It Up Club, which is a known venue in Melbourne. I also met some interesting people like the vocalist of White Horse, Pete Hyde. I love that band. It's a doom band. If you haven't checked it out, you should. Yeah. So in a nutshell, I've started my journey in Australia. I only played Melbourne, and then I told myself, "Wow, this is fun to do." And I also noticed that I have a leverage in terms of I can work remotely since my job is a remote job. To tell myself, why not start touring? Because when I'm doing touring, I'm meeting a lot of awesome people. Also, I feel more alive doing it. You know, just rather than doing the 9 to 5 grind every day. It it like sparked something in me. So when I started that journey in Australia for 3 weeks, and then I got back home, I started booking shows on my own. So everything's on my own. I'm a one man team. I don't have an agency to back me up. So everything's like DIY. My strategy is I reach out to my contacts that I've built for many years through correspondences, and then they help me set up shows. So after Australia, I've done Taiwan. Uh, I'd say Taiwan is my favorite city in Southeast Asia since I have many friends here, and it's quite near my country, Philippines. Yeah, I played several shows here. A good friend of mine, Cha Chun Su, who's now in Portugal, he helped me a lot with setting up the shows in Taiwan. And then through my connections, I found myself finding opportunities in touring China. China is also an interesting adventure for me when I went there last 2024. For China, I worked with a label based in France. It's Chinese French. The label is called WB Sorcerer Productions. The label helped us press my work with Ethan McCarthy from Primitive Men and Hiroshi Asigawa from CCCC. So we have this project called Fossa Magna with another friend of mine from the Philippines. So when that work was pressed and published, 2024, he helped me out set up my first ever China tour, which was very intense and very exciting. So when I did that tour, we just booked it for 2 weeks. He has many connections there. He helped me out, set up shows with torturing nurse in Shanghai, and then I worked my way towards Beijing, riding the train. So the scenario was I landed in Shanghai the day after I played the show. Then the next day I did the flight to Guangzhou, which is south of China. And then from there I played shows every night, going up to Wuhan and then to Beijing. Then I went to other cities like Hangzhou, Yiwu, and that stuff. So during that 2 weeks, I met a lot of awesome people. I was amazed with China's scene in terms of experimental and noise. I didn't expect that experience. Yeah, it was fun, and I made many good friends. And then I was invited to a bunch of noise. So this shirt came from there. There was a prestigious festival organized by this guy called Mazium. So he runs the fest, a bunch of noise. I was invited to play there, and then that was an extremely memorable experience. I met many awesome artists. Even met my hero from Incapacitance, Toshiji Mikawa. We had some beers, got drunk, many great stories shared. Yeah, that was awesome. And then I didn't stop. So all throughout the years, well, 2 years running, all throughout the months, I've been trying to book shows, trying to find my contacts on Facebook, Instagram, see who are the people I've been working, chatting with since I've been like releasing different materials overseas. So I tried to see the opportunities around me. Then I found myself booking shows in other countries after that. The recent one was in Singapore and Malaysia. So friends of mine from the power violence and noise scene helped us book shows. Lee Morris from Abrasion helped us out. Terminal Liner, who is an OG figure in Singapore power electronics scene. So they set up this very awesome show. It's like a basement show in a mall complex, Singapore style. DIY punk noise shows. It's very awesome. I'd say the most memorable experience in terms of harsh noise that I've seen with the scene would be Indonesia. I did a tour run there last year as well. Indonesia, they have many noise artists, world class talent. Mostly all of the cities have seen really heavy noise and witnessed heavy noise sets. So I visited several cities there, like Jakarta, Solo, and also Bali, also Malang. But I'd say if it's harsh noise, Jakarta has the heaviest, and then Bali has experimental good stuff there too. So yeah, some notable artists I'd recommend from Jakarta would be Division Fracture, also Rat Red. So these are the OG guys from Indonesia. And then for Bali, there's a power electronics that I really like there called Drinta Bachan. He runs a record label called Ohoy Records. There's also another guy from Jogjakarta I like. Actually, two guys, Berge Gasmati. So this guy already is working with different Japanese artists. And also our most recent brother who signed up with Tesco Germany called DNAI Death. So yeah, these are awesome people. Very awesome.
Cool. Thanks for giving a recommendation list too. I'm sure people watching this would be like, yeah, okay, let me get immersive. What equipment are you using at the moment for your performances?
Well, I have a humble equipment, like or humble equipments. I do have several distortion and fuzz pedals. And then I also have this synthesizer called Trogotronic 669. So I use that. And then a good friend of mine from the Philippines makes DIY synthesizers. So some of his creations I use on my live sets. So this guy's name is called Gentles. He's actually in the noise world. He's quite known already because he's been making different synthesizers for different noise artists. Yeah. I'd say nothing fancy. I have some cheap equipment, some middle range equipment, but mostly when I tour, I just bring very minimal equipment that works for live sets.
Fair. You have to recommend 5 must listen to artists or albums you think every PE or noise fan should listen to.
Good. There's a lot actually that I've been listening to.
But 5. We only need 5.
For power electronics, well, I do listen to a lot of European power electronics, to be honest. Some of my favorites would be Genocide Organ, I'd say. Condom. So this artist, I'm not sure if he's from Europe or US, but I like his work. For harsh noise, mostly Japanese noise artists I follow, like Hijo Kaidan, Anatarash, CCCC. Also Masona for sure. I love him. His power electronics project called Control Death is also awesome. Yeah, I think those are my favorites.
And this one's a little personal. What are some of the major challenges you faced in a local context when it came to performing jaw surgery in your respective country?
Good question. Well, back many years ago, we did have a small noise scene, which was actually founded by my good friend Glenn Delanco. I actually worked with him on my power electronics project called Coal Miner. So when he was very active during around, as I recall, 2010 up to 2018, he founded this collective called Noise Band. So I was not playing jaw surgery back then yet. I actually brought the jaw surgery live just recently, just when I started touring. But this guy, he was making a lot of shows, and then we were playing like bars and stuff like this. But then after pandemic, everything stopped, all the activity stopped, and they didn't bring that back. So if you ask me about my challenges with playing live there, I don't really play live in the Philippines that much. Only if I organize shows for friends. The last one I played was uh well, there was a show I played last January when I invited Kei Takahashi from City Star Set from Japan. So I organized a DIY show for her, and then I played there with her, collaborated with her live, and then I invited some friends over to play too. Then we also had another show, I believe last May, with some other experimental friends. And the turnout is not really good. Like 10 people, I'd say. Very few, 10 to 15 people. So it's quite challenging because Philippines is a Catholic country. Um, so they're not really into heavy music. It's hard to find those freaks to participate in these kinds of things. But yeah, so I think that's the main challenge. So I don't really like get the hype or the what do you call this? The drive to play live music in the Philippines. Yeah. Also challenge with bring all your gears. Then you have traffic, and then sometimes it floods there. So no, I just think I won't play too much in my country. Yeah, but I mostly usually every week I do practice in my home studio. So I keep the skills intact.
Wow. Hoping that that changes over time because, from an outside perspective, you think the Philippines is full of rock and metal fans and everyone's into like this hardcore music. At least that's what is painted for some of
Mm,
us. So,
I would agree. Philippines actually has a healthy DIY hardcore punk scene. Like lots of touring bands participate. But this scene is actually not open to noise. They don't really, invite noise artists to play. Um, they're mostly intact with the hardcore punk only. So it's hard to like set up shows with them. I do have some friends in extreme metal, which sometimes invite me to play, but I don't get the opportunity to do live sets with them since I do also have daytime jobs and remote jobs that I do. So it's hard to manage schedules. But yeah, we do have a healthy extreme metal, hardcore punk scenes in the Philippines. Yeah.
very cool to know. You and Zor Burq performed in Singapore and Malaysia together very recently. Was that a premeditated thing? And tell us more about the shows and what were your individual sets like?
Mm. Well, first of all, I'm very happy to meet Babar during the Singapore and Malaysia tour. It was a pleasure to meet him because I know his projects. DUSK, I know about DUSK. I know he's an OG in that scene. He's been doing death metal for some time. It was a pleasure hanging out with him. Um, it was not premeditated, I think. Leaf from Singapore is the guy who invited us to play. So I just knew the lineup when they announced it, and then I researched about Zor Burq, and then I realized, it's Dust, this guy. So I didn't really know his face yet. So when we hang out there, I remember the we arrived, me and my friend from Philippines, we were invited. So during the night, we arrived in Singapore. He was already asleep with the other noise friends, and then the morning, the day in the day after, during the morning, we woke up, just said hi to him, then we had the photo together, and then we had coffee, and then we talked about music. The tour was really fun. Uh, I also enjoyed this set very much. So we played that show in Singapore during the night. Was really good energy there. And then after that show, well, that show happened in like a studio. Like it looks like a rehearsal studio, but the sound is really awesome. So you can hear everything there. Very good. Then after that show, we did a road trip going to Kuala Lumpur, which was very fun. Like I remember around 2 a.m. we did the bus ride, like a border run classic style from Singapore going to Kuala Lumpur. We're very lucky that during the they call this during the checkpoint for the border, there's no people, so we just went past, then went straight to Kuala Lumpur without any hassle. If you do some research, that certain border, I think that's called Woodlands checkpoint. there's lots of traffic there usually um, in normal days. But yeah, we went easy. We passed by easy, and then we arrived in Kuala Lumpur. I think around 8 a.m. the next day. So we chilled a bit. We met Reza Rabuan. He's from the Slaughter Table Project. So he's the guy who organized the show. We played the Kuala Lumpur show in a venue called Muto. So Muto is like a garden kind of venue with it's like in a rooftop. They have a garden. Then inside the bar they have a band setup. I really enjoyed that show too. And then yeah, we had some good beers there, hangouts. Saw some good friends too from Malaysia. Some of my favorite sets from Malaysian acts would be Azlan Dawal. Also, well, Slaughter Table is a staple listen to me, as well as this guy called Ba. So he has a band called Body Rag. You should check that out. That's also a good grind band. Yeah.
Tell us about the best show that you have performed under your respective moniker.
Well, I say all shows are best. I don't really it's hard to pick because each and every show is quite unique and friends are there. But if you say probably biggest shows I've played that has like many people turn out, I'd say A Bunch of Noise in China was one of the like eye opener festivals I've joined since that festival when we played last year. There was like approximately 700 people who turned out during the 2 day show, so it's quite a lot of people. Um, yeah, and I met my heroes there, like Mazio and Incapacitants, Toshiji Mikao. So yeah, I think if I need to choose one, that festival.
How did your connection to Raven Command materialize?
Sri Lanka scene is actually quite obscure to me, to be honest. First of all, the font looks really cool. Like Sri Lankan font is cool, black metal looking. So that really like resonated to me. And then I've been following a lot of bands in Sri Lanka, extreme metal bands. When I check Facebook, I see Ravan Command, and then well, to backtrack the story behind that, I went to this show in Bangkok. I remember that was 2024. So I went to God Beheading. So this was an extreme black metal, war metal festival organized by the member of Surrender of Divinity guy. That was my first time attending that show. So when I attended that show, I met the guys in Genocide Shrines, which blew my mind when I saw them live. Wow, these guys are really heavy. And I told myself, this probably is the heaviest band I've seen. And I didn't know Chaturanga then because he was wearing a mask. But I believe I talked to him without a mask. But I can't remember his face. I just recognized his face and I saw some people posting online. Yeah, so that was a very memorable time. I'm not sure if Ravan was there, but my friendship with Ravan materialized when I followed his works, added him on Facebook, and then I asked some friends from India, like the guy from Cyclopean Eye Productions,
Yeah,
Sandesh.
Sandesh.
Yeah, Sandesh is a very awesome guy. He recommended me some contacts, and one of those would be Ravan Kuman. Then I followed Ravan's page, and then I just found a moment to send him a message and ask him, inquired about possibly visiting Sri Lanka. He helped me out. Up to this point now, it's going to happen soon. So I'm very grateful to him. I'm looking forward to meet him soon.
It's actually an entity. A bunch of people that make up, yeah, Raven Command. It is Chaturanga. Chaturanga, Lahiru, that whole bunch.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so that's how I discovered this collective. Very, very, very awesome. And then I also followed the bands that they put up online. When they post like videos, I check out the bands, listen to them. Yeah, heavy stuff you got going on there.
Yeah, we do. We have a lot of stuff, and hopefully, you get to check out more bands from Sri Lanka. What can the audience expect from you on the 6th of December? And will there be any CD releases or merchandise available for Lankan fans to purchase?
Definitely. Well, I'm going to definitely prepare for this set. So right now I'm doing 2 shows in Taipei with my project called Etheric Wound. So I'll be here up until the 19th. Then when I go back to Philippines, I'll have several weeks to prepare for that show. Probably expect something heavy. Um, I'll give my all there until I can't walk anymore. I'm going to bring some merchandise. Definitely, I have some incoming new releases. A bunch of CDs and cassettes, and I'll also bring my first shirt print so they can check that out. I'm open to trades and selling those stuff.
Cool. And any last words from you for the audiences of Sri Lanka?
Well, first of all, I'm very grateful that I'll have a chance to visit Sri Lanka, and I'm looking forward to meeting everyone. There are already some war metal friends who's sending me messages. So I'm looking forward to meeting those guys. Also, you. Hope we get to chat and hang out. Yeah, I'm very excited. It will happen in a few weeks.
Woo!
When I'm there, I'm going to stay approximately 3 weeks. After the show, I plan to just immerse myself in Sri Lanka, travel a bit, know more people. Probably I'll stay there from the 6th because the show is the 6th, so I most likely will arrive a day before. And then I'm planning to stay most likely around the week of the 20th to 23rd, most likely. So I'll have some time to catch up with everyone.
Great. Looking forward to this, and all power to you, man.
Yeah, thank you very much for this opportunity, Yasmin.